Hello, welcome to the Nexus Podcast. Here, we're all about connecting anyone and everyone with our environment. We'll aim to do this through sharing knowledge and discussing various topics that show people how they can be better connected to nature and the world we live in. At the end of each episode, we'll also provide some actionable steps that anybody can take to help make our world a better place. I believe that the impact of everyday people can be profound if we all act and strive to leave the world in a better way than we found it, especially our environment. We'll try to keep things enlightening, informative and educational, whilst not getting too heavy on the info and topics presented. I'd love anyone and everyone to be able to listen and enjoy tuning in. I hope we can be the nexus between you and the beautiful world we live in and so rely on. This is Jessica York bringing you another episode of Nature's Nexus. Let's go. Hello everybody and welcome to our second episode of the Nature's Nexus podcast. Today I have organised a guest speaker for us all to listen to, and that is Dr. Peter Hancock. Pete is a aquatic ecologist, and he's a consultant here. And Pete is actually Armidale's local avid swimmer. He's even gained a reputation around town as the local swimming man, as he swims every day, mostly at Jumeric Dam, and he does this year round, even in winter. So he's pretty dedicated, and if he's away, Pete finds a different local spot for a swim. He's so dedicated, he's amassed 3,853 days in a row of swimming, which I think is pretty impressive. It's quite the habit. He's always active, and he loves competing in marathons, both for swimming and running. And he's also great at supporting charity events through, participation, and he's raised tens of thousands of dollars over the past 10 years probably. So, hello and welcome to Pete. So, as I promised, I'll do my 3 rapid-fire questions at the start to help our listeners get to know Pete a bit. So, you ready, Pete, for your first 3 questions?
Yep, I'm ready.
Okay, so the first question is 3 words to describe yourself.
Maybe curious, adventurous, and pretty quiet.
Lovely. The quiet is debatable, I think. It'd be pretty chatty. Second question. What is it that you love most about our natural world?
That it's always interesting. There's always something cool to see when you're outside. And that it just brings a whole heap of peace and calm when you're out there amongst the birds and out in the bush.
Yeah, lovely. I can relate to that. And our final rapid fire question. How do you connect to nature, or when do you feel the most connected to nature?
Mostly when I'm swimming or running.
Yeah.
Just being out there and feel swimming in particular, because you're actually immersed.
Literally in nature.
Yeah, just you feel the water, you can smell the things and look around and see things. So,
all the senses.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. And that probably brings us into the start of our conversation for the day. So around Pete's swimming, and through his keen swimming, which he mostly does in natural water bodies, especially Jumeric Dam versus pools. Like Pete said, that brings a real connection to nature, which I think is something that a lot of us can probably relate to. So, Pete, where did this love of water all begin, and how has that influenced your career over time?
Well, I've always sort of had it. When I was a kid or grew up, we moved around a bit, but the first memories I have was when I was 4 or 5 in Nyngan, swimming in the Bogan River. And we had friends who had farm, and we'd go and swim in their dam, and we'd find yabbies and big mussels, the size of your head when you're 5 years old. They were pretty huge.
Yeah, wow.
And then, throughout my life, we lived up on Cape York, so there was a lot of good swimming spots up there. A lot of places you couldn't swim because there were crocodiles and sharks and box jellyfish, but once you found a good swimming spot, it was always nice to get in the water when it was 40 degrees outside. So.
Yeah, for sure. And then I guess that sort of related back to your career becoming an aquatic ecologist. That's obviously had some sort of impact on where you've gone later in life.
It did. I initially wanted to be a marine biologist, but I went to
which is still water related.
It is, but I went to a seminar at James Cook University when I was in grade 12 and spoke to a marine biologist there, and he said there's a lot of unemployed marine biologists out there. So that sort of started me thinking, well, because there's a lot of people who obviously wanted to be a marine biologist, but there's not enough jobs. So it got me thinking, maybe I can look into freshwater.
Yeah.
And then I went to uni, and in the last couple of years of my degree, I specialised in freshwater ecology.
Yeah, and that took you into your PhD, which you also did on freshwater ecology. Do you want to talk about that?
Groundwater ecology a lot, that was. So my PhD was looking at the impacts of different flow rules in the Hunter River on the hyperetic invertebrates, which the hyperetic zone is the part of a riverbed where the surface water interacts with groundwater. And so they often have a unique suite of invertebrates that are found only in the sediments of the river.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. Very cool.
Yeah.
And then, that obviously led you into your job as a consultant.
Yeah.
And, how do you see your work now as a consultant contributing to the health of our aquatic ecosystems?
Well, when I was in research, I did a lot of other groundwater ecology work. Some of the initial groundwater ecological surveys in Queensland and New South Wales were part of my initial research when I was doing my PhD and postdoc. And then that helped understand the biodiversity of our aquifers and that they're actually quite diverse. Previously, we didn't know anything about the little crustaceans and things that lived in aquifers, but once we started looking, we found that there are actually quite a lot of species that we hadn't known before, and we're finding them now wherever we look. And as a consultant, I've continued on with that, advising clients on how to reduce their impact on groundwater ecosystems and also on freshwater, rivers and lakes, looking at fish and reducing their impacts on fish and aquatic invertebrates.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. So you made the discovery and then you're able to apply that throughout your career and keep going with it.
Yeah. And we're still finding new animals in the groundwater.
Yes.
Just because people haven't really been looking up until about 10 or 15 years ago, no one really looked. So
yeah,
we're looking and we're finding new things.
Yeah. And it's pretty amazing, all the little invertebrates and stuff you do see in groundwater. Like, you wouldn't think that there might be any living down there, but there's lots of living creatures down under the ground in the water.
Yeah, that's right. And it's interesting because I did some work up in North Queensland and I was sampling an aquifer on a cane field, and we thought, oh, this is cool, because we were finding little prawns about, say, 10 millimetres long, some of them. Some of them are less than a millimetre. Yep. But we were talking to a farmer about it, thinking, oh, this is pretty cool. We'll tell him something about his groundwater that he didn't know. But he says, oh, yeah, I've been finding those little prawns come out of my tap for years. So he knew about them, but, yeah, he didn't tell anyone. So
yeah. Oh, isn't that interesting? I've never noticed, with boars and stuff around home, I've never noticed. I mean, they're so tiny, so you don't really see the bugs anyways, but fascinating.
Yeah.
Cool. And then how has your time spent swimming influenced your understanding and your connection back to aquatic environments?
Oh, it's improved it a lot. It sort of helps you understand how things feel when you're underwater, especially in a flowing environment, and you get to experience the world almost like a fish would, although we don't have the same senses as fish do.
Yeah.
But you can visually see the how the light drops off as you go down.
Yeah.
Especially in a muddy or a turbid river.
Yeah.
And how the flow affects you as you move, say, from being close to the bank out into the main stream, or from the bottom of the river where it's often quite still up into the current. And in clearer rivers, and you can actually see where the fish hang out behind rocks and behind snags.
Oh yeah, which will really let you be able to see sort of more the habitat they utilise and
and also and the invertebrates too. You get to see how they use the river. So you can, for example, there's little caddisflies that build nets, and they build nets sort of on the bottom and the side of rocks on the riverbed, and you can see how they use those to catch little particles drifting around the downstream.
Yeah.
And there are other bugs that you can actually hear chirping underwater, like micronectar, which are a small water boatman, and they chirp like crickets underwater. Even turtles, you can hear turtles calling underwater if you're lucky.
As in when your head's under the water?
Yeah, when your head's under the water, you just hear the different sounds that you wouldn't think.
That you might not otherwise notice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, all the life that's down there. And for those who don't know, when we've mentioned macroinvertebrates, they're just the bugs in the water, basically. And there's a whole range of them, and they come in all different sizes. And a lot of Pete's job as an aquatic ecologist is looking at the health of our freshwater systems, which you can do quite often by looking at the certain macroinvertebrates that exist there, because some have more tolerance to, what's the word, Pete? Unhealthy
Disturbance,
yeah, than other bugs do. So it's all quite interesting once you start learning about it. Do you have any specific bodies of water you feel particularly connected, Pete? I know we mentioned that you do a lot of swimming at Turmeric Dam, which is a little dam here in Armidale. It's a bit of a recreational area for the local families.
Yeah, Turmeric Dam's a special one. I've been going out there for 30 years, swimming in that, and so I've got to know it. And, the things that live in the dam, you sort of see them coming and going. You notice when the swallows arrive, or the midges emerge from the dam at pretty similar times throughout the year. And there was a particular musk duck, which is a type of a diving duck, and it used to live out at the dam. It was there for several years, and it used to sometimes follow me around when I'd school. So I got to know him quite well, and during the breeding season, the female would turn up, and he'd chase her around the dam. It was good to watch, and then they had chicks over the years. So it was good to see those families grow up, and likewise, different birds come and go, and you get to see the fish every now and then. So just maybe Turmeric Dam's probably the main one, but there's a lot of different places that I like swimming.
Yeah. I suppose another one a lot of people might relate to is the ocean. A lot of people probably find a lot of peace and just enjoy going swimming at the beach quite often. I know that I certainly feel a lot of calm, and I don't know, it's like refreshing in a way, just the ocean water. It's got something different to freshwater.
Yeah, well, that's and it's more buoyant you're more buoyant in salt water, so it's a bit easier. But one of the things I like about swimming in natural environments is there's so much variety. You've got rivers, and no two rivers are the same, lakes, and then there's the ocean. And one year I set myself a challenge to try and swim in as many different places as I could, and I got up to 333 over the 365 days of the year. So it was a pretty mad year. I'd have pretty hectic weekends where I'd go from one swimming spot to the next. And
can you tell us more? What sort of swimming spots did you go in amongst all those 300 swimming spots? Like, did you drive far? Or?
Yeah, well, we had a trip to New Zealand. So and the kids were young, so they used to come along and go for swims too. They liked it. We went. I can't remember so we did New Zealand. So we did a lot of swimming over there in the cold creeks and lakes over there, and then we went out western New South Wales into the brown, slow rivers.
So you sort of had a few holidays to help out with the diversity in this challenge.
Yeah. And then we probably visited just about every swimmable bit of water around Armidale.
Yeah.
So it was a good year. Pretty hectic. I don't know if I do it again, but
yeah. And for those who don't know Pete, he does do these little challenges sometimes where he will set something different to do each day. I mean, the most recent one you did was your coffee challenge, wasn't it? Tell us about that one.
Different. I just thought I got sick of drinking cappuccinos, so I thought I'd see what else there was out on offer, and so every day for a month, I drank a different type of coffee, and then that extended beyond a month, and I think we got up to 44 days or something with different coffees, and some of them were pretty interesting. Some have avocado in them, others had olive oil.
Yeah. You tried that new gen one. What was it called?
Yeah, the Evu.
No, the My Chai or something. What was it called?
Oh, I don't know. There was a Vietnamese.
The one with the condensed milk and yogurt.
Oh yeah, condensed. That was Vietnamese yogurt.
Apparently it's all the rage. Anyway, we've digressed, but who knows? Maybe people can implement these quirky challenges with different nature-related things, like Pete with his swimming. Maybe you could go out and find different swimming holes to explore, every day for a month or something.
I did have one coffee that was made out of Jimeric Dam water, and I had some. I got a bottle of water out of the dam, and I looked at it, and it had little copepods in it, which are small, millimetre long
little mackerel
zooplankton.
Yeah. Zooplankton.
So I put them in the coffee pot and cooked them.
Yeah. There you go, guys.
As part of the coffee, it's a secret.
But it's one way of connecting with nature. You go and drink it. Probably tasted a bit.
Eat a copepod a day.
Oh, very funny. Another question. How do you think, taking from your personal experience, how do you think the public can then deepen their connection to water and the ecosystems around them, beyond just using them for recreation? I mean, obviously it's a bit different for you because you use it for work-related purposes as well, but...
When I was 20 years ago, I went to a conference in Perth, and it was an aquatic ecology conference, and one of the speakers, I'll always remember, he said, the best thing we can do for our rivers is to take our kids swimming more. And at that stage, we were expecting our first daughter.
And sort of just nurture that appreciation for our local waterways.
Yeah, because that connection is one of the main things that will make people value rivers.
Yeah, and especially everybody's going to appreciate a nice clean river compared to a muddy river that's lost all its riparian vegetation.
Yeah, that's right. And in New Zealand, that's their standard, their goal is to get every body of water to a point where they can swim in it safely without getting sick and without getting any diseases or anything like that.
Yeah, where it's all safe. Yeah. Yeah. So what ways do you feel that swimming helps you reconnect or recharge, mentally or physically?
Oh, it just, it's a very soothing thing to get in a body of water. And even a couple of weeks ago, I had a sore back, and I'd go out swimming in the dam, and the cold water of the dam used to just take all the, the aches and pains away. And but it's also just good for your head to be out in nature. Everyone benefits from it.
Yeah.
And, whether it's the dam or whether it's, if you like being out in the bush. It's just a peaceful area for you to be away from all the hectic things that happen in life.
Yeah, for sure. And it's interesting because you do swimming all year round, which means you even go swimming in winter, which means Pete goes swimming in the cold water. And, that could almost lead into a whole nother topic talking about cold water swimming. But Pete, how do you deal with the cold water swimming and swimming all year round? How do you handle all those range in temperatures?
You just grit your teeth and get in. So the coldest I've done is probably 1.2 degrees, and that was in a lake in New Zealand, Lake Tasman, where there's a glacier that comes into that lake, and the icebergs carve off the front of it and float across the lake. So I swam around one of those icebergs and then got out and swam around another one because it was
So you're actually in the water for a fair amount of time then, you weren't just in and out?
Yeah. Oh, not a lot of time, maybe 10 minutes each.
Okay.
Yeah, at that temperature, it's pretty dangerous.
Yeah.
And then 2022, I did a thing called an ice mile, which you swim 1.6 Ks in water that's less than 5 degrees.
Wow.
And I was in for about 38 minutes for that, and got out, and it was pretty intense, that whole experience. Towards the end of my swim, your peripheral vision closes down and you just have a focused funnel of vision. So it's interesting to see.
So your periphery started getting a bit blurred?
Yeah, and that's another interesting thing about this cold water swimming. It pushes your limit and it teaches you about your own body.
Yeah.
And same with endurance swimming, longer, 20 or 30K swims, you sort of learn what your body can do and how to fuel it. And it's amazing what the human body's capable of, really.
Yeah. Which reminds me, there is a group of women here in Halmada who do go out to the Turmeric Dam. They've been going out throughout winter to do cold water swimming. I think they've called themselves the Dam Dippers. So, yeah, it's interesting. I've been learning a fair bit about cold water swimming this year and all the health benefits it has. And I've certainly seen a lot of research online and on documentaries. So that could be an interesting way to, connect and different things you can do and the different health benefits of getting out in nature. Even when the water is cold, you don't need to only go swimming in the summertime when the water's pleasant. People try it all year round.
That's right.
Which is quite interesting. But maybe we can discuss that in another episode.
And even some I've swum in thermal pools too, like spring-fed rivers and lakes around Taupo in New Zealand, and there's some in Western New South Wales that are from the Great Artesian Basin, and the water's about 38 or 39 degrees, and that have a different feel to it. There's still copepods in that hot water too, so copepods are pretty diverse and tolerant group of animals, and then they have different algae and different types of biofilm living in the hot springs compared to what live in the cold.
Yeah, nice. And then I've got one last question for you, Pete. I don't know if we've answered this already, but has your experience as a swimmer inspired any of your ecological research?
In some ways, I remember I had one little experiment where I came up with the idea because I was swimming and I mentioned net spinning caddisflies before, and looking at where they were living around the bottom of rocks in the Murray River. And I had a little experiment for a while where I put some of these caddisflies in a flowing tank of water, a circulating tank of water, and just saw where they built their nests in relation to the current velocity. So there's a point where the current is too fast that it would damage the integrity of the net, and then there was another point where the current was too slow and it wasn't delivering enough flow to keep the net open and to put enough food into the net for the caddisfly. And then there was obviously a middle range where the caddisfly preferred to build their nest, their net, to catch the most food.
Yeah. Very cool. So you learn a little bit from your little experiment.
So that was it. And it's just when you're swimming and looking at the fish, you're constantly thinking about, why is that fish over there in that particular part of the river, whether it's hiding behind a rock or whether it's sitting in a still pocket of water waiting for food to drift by so it can dart up and grab the insect or grab whatever it's hunting. Yeah.
Makes sense. Cool. Oh, well, I think we've pretty well covered most of what we were going to talk about today. So we might finish off with some actions, because I love to give everybody some actions that they can take home and maybe some learnings from the session that they could apply to their own lives and help them get better connected with nature, as Pete does with his waterways through swimming and his role. So, Pete, what are some actions you think that anyone and everybody could do to, help them with their connection with nature?
I think the main one would be the one that I heard at that conference years ago, and that's to go swimming in rivers and, in the ocean, if you're near the ocean, more, and to take your kids, just so that they can develop an appreciation for their natural environment and foster that. And another thing could be, if you're out swimming or, out at a lake or a river and you see rubbish, just pick that rubbish up and take it home with you, help clean up the environment. Yeah,
for sure. Definitely a couple of good points, encouraging, that appreciation for nature younger on and teaching people the value of our beautiful natural waterways. Lovely. Oh, well, thanks so much for coming on, Pete. It was a pleasure having you.
Thanks, Jess. It was good.
No problem. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in and listening. I hope that you found some value in today's conversation and got some inspiration from Pete and his love of swimming and our aquatic ecology. See ya. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Nature's Nexus podcast. I hope you enjoyed it and found some value in what was shared today. I look forward to presenting more knowledge and sharing ways we can connect to nature in future episodes, and hope you tune in with me to listen, learn, and act. Thank you, and until next time.